Welcome to Swim Chats. I'm Shona Riddell, a writer, former journalist and ocean swimmer from Aotearoa, New Zealand. On this podcast, I talk to a whole range of swimmers about how they got started and the things they've learned. A few notes before we get started. If you're listening to this in June, it's not too late to donate to the Big Swim, which is raising funds for Coast Guard New Zealand. Every dollar counts, so see the link in the show notes to learn more or to make a donation. Also, you're always welcome to get in touch with me via swimchatswithshona@gmail.com with any thoughts or suggestions about the podcast, or you can leave a comment below the episode. Please remember to hit follow or subscribe and leave a 5-star rating, which helps other people find it too. And share the podcast with anyone who you think will enjoy it. I can see the listener numbers growing and it's really cool. Okay, let's get started with today's swim chat. I'm talking to poet, author and ocean swimmer Kate Camp. We're in the middle of June now. Winter has arrived. The sea temperature has dropped to about 10 degrees in the mornings, maybe 11. And the air temperature is often half of that. And we're approaching the Māori New Year, or Matariki in New Zealand, which means we're also approaching a national holiday. And that's quite a new thing for our country as well, to have a national holiday sort of towards the end of June. And as part of that, in Wellington, we have a series of Matariki swims, which are organised by Kate Camp, who is joining me this evening. And what that means is we have 9 swims, and they're at different days, times, and beaches. First of all, Kate, welcome to Swim Chats. That was quite a long monologue from me.
Nice to be here.
Welcome. Can you tell us why there are 9 swims?
Yeah, there's 9 swims because Matariki is about the rising of the Matariki star cluster, and there are 9 stars in that cluster. So the mother star of the cluster is the star that's called Matariki, and then there's 8 other stars in the cluster. So yeah, I work at Te Papa, the National Museum of New Zealand, and we've always marked Matariki, and we've done a lot to foster knowledge of it. And a few years ago, when the public holiday was launched, it was launched at Te Papa. And at that time, we were, a lot of us were talking about what would be the rituals, how will people come to mark Matariki? Because for a lot of people, including a lot of Māori, have never necessarily grown up doing things, particularly for Matariki. So I just got into my ocean swimming not that long before then. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to swim every day for 9 days to mark the 9 stars of Matariki.
That's awesome. And so is this the 3rd year that it's been going?
Yeah. I'm just counting on my fingers. Yeah, but 22, 23, 24. So this will be the 4th year, actually. Yeah, 2022 was the first year.
The 4th year, wow. And so every June you do a Facebook event post, and you post, where the swims are going to be and when, and people mark if they're going or interested. And I've noticed that it's almost up to 200 people already.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you know, I also do the 12 Bays of Christmas, which I can't take credit for that pun. I copied that off someone in the UK. And the Christmas one was almost getting to be a bit huge. Like, I think the proportion of people who mark interested versus who actually do it in winter is,
Yeah.
it's quite different from in the summertime. So I would expect Matariki swims would probably be a dozen people, whereas the summer ones there were getting up to maybe 50 for some of them. So
Wow. Yeah, and it feels like, from speaking as someone who's attended them, it feels a bit like a flash mob. I don't know if people still use that term, but it's just a random group of people show up in their togs, get in the sea, sort of bob and chat, get out, and then carry on with their day. And it's
yeah, I described it as a splash mob.
a splash mob, even better.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a sense of, there's a sense of community around people who swim in the sea. And the weird thing is, I feel it even when I'm swimming on my own. I still feel that sense of community because I don't know, it's just you know that you're doing something and other people are doing it in different places, and you maybe see people it's so often the case that you turn up to somewhere and you think, oh my God, I'm mad. I can't believe I'm about to go for a swim. And then you look and there's already someone there, or there's someone, getting trained by their car, and you think, oh, another mad person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned that you do the same swims in the summer. Having said that, in Wellington, our summers are not always particularly hot around Christmas. Like last Christmas in particular, it was quite wintry. So, yeah, the weather can be quite surprising.
Mm,
The word or
yeah,
erratic.
yeah, and I mean, we were so lucky in Wellington because Wellington is so windy, and it's often the wind that makes you that impacts your swim the most. Because if it's raining, who cares? You're already wet. But we're so lucky with the different bays that there's usually always one you can find that's sheltered, and actually that's what I find the biggest challenge of having like a planned series of swims is trying to choose the bays in advance, and then if there's just a really horrendous storm comes in from one direction or whatever, sometimes you need to adjust at the last minute.
Yeah. So, how do you plan them? Do you look at a long range forecast a few weeks in advance?
I am a premium subscriber to windy.com. This is not
Right.
a commercial endorsement, but I did treat myself to that about a year ago. So, and I do find that it is very accurate, even a long way out in terms of wind direction. But yeah, but I mean, once you get to sort of 2 weeks out, it gets less accurate all the time. So, yes, I just try and I try and pick bays that like most bays in Wellington, even if the weather's bad, it's still safe. So I'd say Island Bay is probably the trickiest one, but I find even if it's rough, you can go down the other end where the boats are, and it's usually pretty safe down there.
You were saying this is going to be the fourth year. So from the first time you organised one to now, have you learned a lot about organising random swim events? Has anything changed?
Well, um, I don't know. I think I probably think everything I knew about, I probably knew to start off with, which is that I mean, I'm quite extroverted. And when I get into something, I love to then like tell other people about it and have other people involved. But I also don't like to micromanage or do admin. So, so I was always, and I work in comms and marketing. So, right from the start, I was very clear that this is just something I'm doing for fun. And if people want to come along, they can join in. And give some advice in the Facebook post about do's and don'ts, but then I try to not become like the holder of any lost property or, or the boss of anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you must have some hardcore people who come to every single
Yeah.
swim.
Yeah. Including my mum. My
Yeah.
mum, who's 82, whatever, however old she is. Yeah, she's become a hardcore sea swimmer in the last few years. So
That's cool. Is that from you organising these events, or was that something she was doing anyway?
yeah, no, she's got into sea swimming through me, although she's always been a swimmer and a good swimmer, whereas I only learned to swim in my late 40s. So,
All right, well, I'll post a link in the show notes if anyone wants to follow along, because I know you post pictures from each swim. And
yeah.
so part of the reason we're chatting today is because you have just published a new book. So congratulations on that. It's a book of poetry called Makeshift Seasons. I did buy a copy and I really loved it. I have to say,
Okay.
it's the first book of poetry I've read probably since I did my undergraduate degree in English, which was, last century. I loved it. It's just such a, you sort of see the world through someone else's eyes for a while, and just all the sensory descriptions, especially your poems about Island Bay Beach. Yeah, I really loved it. And I was going to ask, would you feel comfortable reading one of your poems for the
Yeah, I'd love to. And because one of my poems features another one of your guests and and a location familiar to Wellington swimmers. It's a reasonably long poem. And it's yeah, I'll just clear my throat. All right, Freyberg Carpark. Graham alone on his chair, his feet on the concrete wall, looking out to sea. Do we say sea if it's a harbour? Looking out to water. He hasn't put any chairs out yet, any tables, hasn't put out his flag. The wooden doors of the kiosk are closed for now, wooden like the doors of a stable, or how I imagine a stable would be, I, who have never been of horses. When I waited for coffee here Saturday, a woman freshly cold from the water and dressed in the oversized fleece called an udi spoke to me, abruptly, let's say fast and unexpectedly, of her depression. Swimming has made a huge difference in her life. It is life-changing, I said. If it is possible to be both sheepish and gently defiant, then that was my affect. In my hands, a brown paper bag enclosed a donut, its fuchsia icing scattered with granola. It could have been a gift for the infant Jesus, the way I held it before me. This car park is a place of many rituals. Behind the white beauty of the pool, angled and filled with rays through its high windows, the pain of rough asphalt underfoot, the ways I stand drying 1 foot at a time, taking the socks knitted for me, the cowl knitted for me, the gifts of repetition, known cloths against my face and body, domestic vessels, gin bottle, keep cup, my broken spork, the pale blue ghost of a leftover mask, its white strings and blown out pleats. I can change anywhere. This thin blue towel, my place of transformation.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Has Graham heard the poem?
Yeah, he has, and I sought his permission before I published it with his name in it because he's pretty recognisable to anyone who knows the kiosk. And he came to the launch of the book, which was really nice. So
Oh, that's really special.
yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, it's always the way when you write a poem, you don't really, well, it is for me anyway. I'm not really consciously thinking about it. I'm just writing the things that have popped into my mind. And it was only when I'd finished that poem that I realized how much religious imagery there is in it. And I feel like, the way I describe Freyberg Pool, it almost makes it sound like a church with its high windows and the rays streaming in. And I mean, Freyberg is like that. And I feel like, there's definitely a huge spiritual dimension to the whole experience of ocean swimming that I think we all feel.
That is so true. And a lot of people listening to this podcast will be Wellington ocean swimmers who also swim at Freyberg Pool and will recognize a lot of what you have described and will feel very similarly. I know I do. I love the idea about the car park being a place of transformation as well. For a lot of people driving past, it will just be a car park, but
Yeah.
for
It's like
us,
my second home.
yeah, I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, and it's like, and now I'm like, I mean, I don't really like to go into the changing rooms. The changing rooms there are horrible, and I can never be bothered going to the ones at the pool. And I'm happy changing at my car, and it always cracks me up to see people have got all their little life hacks for changing at the car and their little mats that they're standing on and their bottles of water. And yeah, I love all that.
That's right. I think most of us start off with, the togs and the goggles, and then
Yeah,
slowly over time. And I think it was one of your spin-off articles where you talked about the edge of swimming, where,
yeah,
yeah, where we have all these sort of special items, like you mentioned in the poem as well. You have things that are knitted, and you have your keep cup, and just all those little bits and pieces that are sort of almost part of your identity,
mm,
swimmers.
yeah. And I saw a woman getting changed there one time and I laughed. I said, the back of your car looks like a swimming shop. She had just so much stuff in there, toe floats and, all sorts of, and it's all kind of garishly luminous. And yeah, and I think, I mean, I'm sure it's the same for other activities that people get into, but I also feel with the ocean swimming, because it's a survival factor, because you're so cold by the time you get out, and in that Wellington wind, it's sort of like I think you feel an extra attachment to all those clothes and accoutrements that you're putting on, because it's like that's all that's standing between you and hypothermia. So
That's true, and you get really adept at changing
yeah,
fast after a bit of practice. At the beginning, it feels like it takes forever, and
yeah.
then after a
Although
few,
there's one thing I mean, I almost never put on underwear after a swim. I always just go straight into my merino track pants and a merino t-shirt. And the other day I was thinking, oh, just, and then I get changed into work clothes later. And I was thinking, oh no, I can eliminate the middleman. I'll just get changed straight into my work clothes. And then I realised, no, this is why I don't do it, because I can't do up a bra with my cold hands.
It
So
is
it's like,
really difficult.
it's
Yeah,
just, yeah. I was
it's
like, this is
really
useless.
fiddly. Yeah, and anything that slows down the process is
Yeah,
just not what you need, especially in winter. And so I mentioned before that you've written for the spin-off a little bit about your swimming, and I think you and I might both be children of the 80s, and that, we started off swimming lessons basically doing lots of kicking and spinning our arms around in very cold, unheated outdoor school pools.
yeah.
Is that where you got started with your swimming?
Yeah, and I don't know why I never learned to swim as a child, but I mean, I did the lessons and everything, but I think it's probably a combination of I was very skinny. I had a lazy eye, so I was always going wonky. I would get very cold, and also probably just wasn't very focused. So I think I got the lowest you could get was the 15-meter certificate, and you could swim to the length of your school pool. And so I got that, and then that was it. So my mother and sister were both always good swimmers and could swim, a good distance. But I've always loved the water, and I've always loved being in the sea. But up until this time in the last few years of learning to swim, I would never really go out of my depth or, just, and always was you know, not unconfident, but a cautious person in the water because I knew I couldn't swim.
Yeah, that sounds so much like me because I was skinny with a lazy eye as well. And so
Oh,
there you
snap.
go. And I love the water too, but because I wasn't fast, I didn't stick with it, and so gave it up very young. And yeah, only really started learning to swim properly a few years ago. So when you got back into it, did you have a couple of swimming lessons to get started, or did you sort of teach yourself?
Yeah, I've been meaning to, it's one of those things I've been meaning to get around to for like the last 30 years. And so when I finally did, I took 4 months off work to work on my memoir. That was the book before this one was a book about my life. And to finish that, I took some time off work, and I thought, oh, well, I've got this time off work, I'll do swimming lessons. So I did a term of private swimming lessons. I was staying up in Waikanae and did them in Kapiti. And that was amazing. I mean, super humbling because it was at a private pool in her backyard, and the class before me was the preschool class. So there'd be six little toddlers just finishing up their lesson, and then I'd arrive 48 years of age for my lesson. And I sort of thought, I kind of imagined once I got into the pool, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll have a lesson or something. I'll probably find out I can swim and I'm actually pretty good. But I wasn't. I was just like, I couldn't even swim. Yeah, I struggled to swim even the length of that 15-meter pool. Like, I think like a lot of people who don't swim or learn as swimmers, I just try and go way too fast and just, yeah, just sort of flap around. um, so yeah, I think, and I can still remember the feeling of doing, because the pool at Coastlands at Paraparaumu is a beautiful pool there. And I can still remember doing my first length there and thinking, oh my God, am I ever going to make it to the end? And then the sense of achievement when I did my first two lengths in a row. And then it got to the point where, just gradually over time, I was just swimming further and further and further in the pool. And I thought, oh, turns out I can do this.
So how did you transition or expand from the pool into the sea?
I'd heard, I had a workmate, a friend of mine, Ellie, and she had been a keen swimmer. And then during COVID, she wasn't able to swim at the pool anymore. And so she had started sea swimming. And then she'd really got into that. So um, I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a go. She was a devotee, and I thought I'll swim at Freyberg. I'll do some lengths in the pool. I think this might have been her recommendation. I thought I'll do some lengths in the pool, and then I'll go down and swim at the beach. And my goal was this would have been summer of 2021. Well, my goal is to swim to the raft by the end of the summer, So I did my 10 lengths in the pool. And then because this was still COVID, I can remember what a faff. I had to get out of the pool, put my mask on. Of course, no ear loops because I had a swimming cap on. So somehow hold a mask over my face, have a laminated COVID pass in my hand. I had to then, to get my towel, go out onto the beach to have my swim. And of course, to swim out to the raft, I did it the first time. It was only like 50 yards or something, but to me, it had always loomed as this like huge distance. And yeah, and so then I thought, oh, that wasn't too bad at all. So once I started sea swimming, it pretty quickly became regular, and then yeah, and then daily.
Do you still swim in the pool now, or are you completely a sea swimmer?
Almost never. You know, funnily enough, the only time I usually swim in the pool is if I'm staying up in Waikanae, because I don't really enjoy my beach swimming there as much. The water's so shallow and you can't really swim, and it's sort of very just open and exposed. So, and when I do swim in the pool, I do enjoy it. But most of my exposure to the pool now is sitting in the sauna at Freyberg watching other people swim after I've had my sea swim.
And do you mostly swim alone, or are you in a group?
Combo. So I love swimming alone and I love swimming with my friends. And yeah, I've got swimming friends who I joined a group that was already there, and they sort of um, meet up by Facebook Messenger. A lot of them are retired, so you know, for us people who are still working, you know, I get a lot of FOMO because they'll be swimming during the week and I can't go. But yeah, and then sometimes I'll meet a friend in the morning and swim at Freyberg with a friend, or you know, or friend at Island Bay, and other times I'll swim on my own, and I just really enjoy both.
And do you tend to be a morning swimmer?
Yeah, yeah.
Just sort of pre-work.
Yeah, and I just think that it's because it's a habit. Now I feel like my day doesn't really feel like it started properly if I haven't had a swim. And then I also, to me, the water feels a lot colder when I swim late in the day. I think it's probably just because my body's so used to the cold at that early time, that if I swim in the afternoon, I often get a bit of a shock of how cold it seems.
Oh, right. Yeah. And do you do you have a favorite beach, or is it sort of like the Matariki swims where you like to mix it up and swim
Yeah.
a little bit?
I always used to say, my answer to that always used to be no, I like every beach, you know, I've got lots of beaches I like in different ways. But actually, I think Island Bay has now become my favourite beach. I do swim there a lot. And I just think over time, I just love the island. I swam to the island for the first time. I've only done it once. I swam to the island for the first time this summer, and that was amazing. But
But
yeah, it's just the bay. I mean, it's close to home. The water's so clear. The island is amazing. The boats are cute. There's that amazing Rita Angus painting that I always think of when I'm there looking at the boats. And yeah, it's just a magical place.
it's part of Taputuranga Marine Reserve, isn't it there? So
Yeah.
while you were swimming, did you see a lot of marine life?
Not so much marine life, but when you swim out to the island, you swim over an amazing seaweed forest as you get close to the island, and the water's so clear. And I've never seen so many different types of seaweed. It really, I felt like I was watching a nature documentary about seaweed. It was so crystal clear. It was almost hard to believe that you were looking at it in real life. Something about seeing it through water rather than through air. It almost is like super clarity.
Oh, that sounds really beautiful. I haven't done that yet. I would like to do it. Did you go on a particularly calm day? Was there any current to deal with?
There wasn't any current. Well, I did get a little bit of a light chop on the way back. It was one of those things, you know, where I've been thinking of doing it for ages and thinking, oh, I wouldn't want to do it unless I had someone with me on a kayak and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I was meeting friends down there for a swim. And my friend Jim said, oh, maybe you should swim to the island. And I was like, maybe. And so I put my wetsuit in the car because normally I just swim in togs. Um, but then I didn't have my wetsuit on. But I had my tow float. And I thought, oh, okay. And there were a couple of women there who we didn't know. But again, with that sense of community, we chatted to these women and they were swimming out to the island. They'd swum out to it numerous times before. And so we thought, okay. And that kind of gave me the confidence. So a couple of friends, and these two women who were our swim mentors went out together. Yeah, it was great.
It's really useful to swim with local people who have local knowledge too, who have
Yeah,
done a swim before and they can tell you what to expect.
absolutely. And it's not, I mean, it's not that far. in some ways it's not that far, but it's when you don't know and it's an unknown current, and it's basically like, I mean, you're on the obviously on the land side of Island Bay, but there's always the haunting feeling that beyond Island Bay there's not a lot, not a
Yes.
lot to hang on to. So yeah.
And with winter swimming, I know that you have a preference for the Orca bright orange neoprene skull cap because I've got one of those too, and that's quite a good way to deal with brain freeze during these colder months. Is there other gear that you like to wear during
I
winter?
don't wear anything now. I've been through different phases. Like I had little booties that I wore for a while, and I do have a wetsuit, but I only have worn that just a handful of times from going on longer swims. I just generally, I mean, I think a lot of it's just chance and metabolism. Like I think I'm quite cold resistant because I swim with quite a few different people. I think it's not necessarily a thing of age or body size or gender or whatever. I think some people are just more cold sensitive than others, and I don't think I'm particularly cold sensitive. So I seem to do okay. And but yeah, I mean, even before I had the neoprene hat, someone told me in the Freyberg changing room. Actually, someone said, "Oh, just wear two hats." And even that makes a huge difference. Just having two swim caps on in the winter.
Yeah.
So
We often get good advice from random people, don't we? Like everyone
yeah,
has different advice, and it's generally all pretty useful, but you have to hear it from somebody.
yeah, exactly. And that's yeah, and I mean, I find that when I'm swimming, people often ask you for advice too. So I think it's a real yeah, it's just another sign of the kind of community vibe.
Yeah, you mentioned in your poem having a an abrupt conversation with
Yeah,
someone you'd never met before, and it's often
yeah,
like that, isn't it?
yeah,
When you're sort of jumping up and down trying to keep warm after a swim, and
yeah.
yeah,
And quite a personal yeah, and quite personal. And I think as well, like I really love it when you swim out. I don't usually go very far, but if I've swum out to first buoy or something, it cracks me up that then you get to first buoy and they'll be like, oh, there'll be just a couple of people bobbing around there, and it's like, oh, good morning. It's sort of it's like you're waiting in the queue for your coffee or something. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird kind of sociability.
yeah, and so you're quite I'd say you're a pretty seasoned swimmer now. You've been swimming in the open water for a few years. Do you get people coming to you for advice?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, maybe people ask me things, but I think they're probably not coming to me for advice. They're probably just getting it, getting it unsolicited. It's not so much advice. It's more just like life hacks. Like I've always been someone who's loved life hacks of any kind, and my family or my husband will tease me about it. And so, if I get onto a new thing that I think is really really good. Like I got onto this rubber matting that you buy at Kmart, and it's like I think it's designed to be like deck tiles. So if you want to create a deck over your grass, but it's really great for standing on, especially if you're unfortunate enough to be changing in the changing rooms at Freyberg, which are always disgustingly wet underfoot and like manky. And it just insulates you, but it also is kind of high up enough off the ground that your clothes, when they dangle onto it, don't get wet. So, yeah, I think I'm quite likely to foist my ideas or products on people of things I think are really good.
Well, that's a good life hack. Do you have any other swim hacks that you sort of live by that you'd recommend?
Well, I do like I bought a lot of swimming stuff that I've then never really used. Like I bought one of those big capacious coats, and I don't use that. And I've got um, a poncho towel, but I only really use that in the summer when I just go home in it. But I think my favourite swimming item is my towel that I referred to in that poem, my thin blue towel, which is a Turkish cotton towel from Stoked, who make those big ponchos. And it's just so good in terms of the size, the thinness of it, how it dries so quickly. And yeah, that's my favourite one to get changed in. And then yeah, just the absence of underwear, I believe, is
Yeah.
another another important factor, secret of my success.
Yeah, I would concur with that one. And yeah, the Turkish hooded towel, I've got one of those too. And yeah, I think of it as my mobile changing room because you can just use
Yeah,
because not all beaches have changing rooms. So Yeah, you
No,
can't.
and I generally, yeah, I mean, unless it's right there, like a good one, like and there's lots of good changing rooms in Wellington, um, but if I have to cross the road or something, I might as well just get changed on the beach or by my car.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you've come across the pet bed warmers that some swimmers have, that you actually buy them from a pet shop. I've got one. And you heat them up in the microwave and they stay warm for ages.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's like a hot water bottle, but they just stay warm for longer.
No,
So,
a friend of mine has just got a like it's like an electric blanket foot warmery thing that when you go home you put your feet into it, and it's like one big boot that both feet go into, I think, and it's
that,
like electric blanket.
oh, that sounds like bliss.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I just have a big puffer coat, and I always have a hot cup of tea in the car,
Yeah.
and and then I just jump up and down a few times, and yeah, my car's got a heated steering wheel, which is amazing. So yeah, that's I usually find I can warm up reasonably well, but I actually also enjoy the thing of being cold after my swim and just gradually, like, sometimes I have a sauna or a shower or whatever afterwards, but I also quite enjoy just slowly returning to room temperature.
Yeah, having that fresh, tingly feeling of getting out. Yeah. Do you set swim goals for yourself? Do you sort of have targets that you meet, or is it more you just like to get in every day and
Mm.
enjoy the water?
Yeah, more just that that I just enjoy doing it. I mean, I do have, I've had goals that I've met in certain distances that I wanted to, like I've swum around the lighthouse only a couple of times, but that was always a goal before I'd done that. And then I went on a swimming holiday to Aussie to the Whitsundays, and that was did some long swims and that was when I'd only just started out, so that was probably quite demanding for where I was at then. I was very slow. And then I did the Hooker River swim this summer with friends, went up and did that.
That's
That's really
quite
easy
fun.
though. Yeah, it's only 3 kilometers. It's 3 kilometers, but I mean, it only takes 45 minutes. So it's 3 times faster than any other swimming that you do. Yeah, so I tend to have, but it's more, yeah, they're more goals of things I want to experience rather than I'm not sort of driven by the distance or number of days, or it's just really like a thing of just the doing it is the destination for me.
Yeah. A lot of people who come on this podcast talk about having encounters with marine life, sometimes unexpected ones. Have you had any incredible experiences that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most incredible one was on the first time we did the 12 Bays of Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, we were at Princess Bay. This was 2 or 3 years ago now, and we'd been out for quite a while already, and then we saw dolphins over towards Houghton Bay, and there was a pod of dolphins in the water with us, and they were, they're probably a couple of 100 meters away, but clearly visible, and that was amazing. And eventually, and they hung around. Eventually, we had to go in because we've been in the water for like 45 minutes already. So that was pretty awesome. I've never seen anything when I've been swimming on my own. I've never seen anything sort of close up, which I think I'd probably just freak out if I did. So I'm not, yeah, I'm not sure if it's something I want to wish for or not. When I went to Aussie to do the long swim, the 3 kilometer swim was the longest one we did, and you're just swimming along the side of a beach, so you could stand up at any time. But about 1 minute into the swim, I swam over the biggest stingray I've ever seen. it
Oh,
was like it was like a meter and a half wide or something. I was like, oh. So after that, I never put my feet on the ground again. That was quite a good incentive to just keep swimming. But yeah, saw heaps of amazing marine life on that trip.
it looks so beautiful there. I've seen, videos and photos of it. I haven't been there. Was that with effortless swimming or swim track? One of those.
It was swim trek, yeah. Oh, I think it was swim trek, yeah. Anyway, it was one of those, and yeah, we were on a sailing ship, and stayed for 4 nights, and I think that it was a real education as well because I mean, it was almost entirely. Were there any men on the trip? I don't know, but it was mainly women, mainly middle-aged women, and real serious swimmers, I mean, I was definitely the least capable swimmer on board ship, no doubt about it. It was just really inspiring to hear what people get up to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm definitely inspired by hearing about other people's swim adventures. I'm keen to try new ones. Are there any books, or as a writer, are there any swim books that you particularly enjoy or would recommend?
There's a really nice compilation. I've forgotten what the name of it is now, of essays and writing from people swimming at the Hampstead Ladies Pond. So that was another little swim destination when I was in the UK, and a couple of years ago I went and swam with my mother at the Hampstead Ladies Pond, and there's a really cool collection of reminiscences of swimming there. Yeah,
Oh, cool. What was it like
that's a
swimming there?
goodie. Um, I mean, it was more, I think I enjoyed it more for the experience and the actual being there. I'm not a huge fan of swimming in fresh water, not that I've done a lot of it, but in ponds, like it's a bit like, ooh, it's weedy, and you know the bottom is muddy, so you sort of don't want to touch the bottom or whatever. So I don't think it really rates in terms of from the swimming point of view, but from a cultural experience point of view, to be doing wild swimming in the heart of London, and it's in a beautiful part, you know, Hampstead, and it's a beautiful part of the world, and it's sort of, yeah, the storied history of the whole ponds. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty iconic, isn't it? It's one of those.
Yeah, and I swam at Canary Wharf as well, which is a bit of a faff. You have to join the National Open Water Swimming Society and get a wristband and this and that and the other to swim there. But that's pretty amazing. Then you're swimming among the skyscrapers in the Thames. It's like a cut-off section of the Thames. The water's crystal clear. And yeah, you're swimming, you know, you breathe out one side and there's like, 30-story HSBC, and then breathe out the other side, there's some other tower block. So it's pretty cool.
That's incredible. Wow, I didn't know about that. And so they won't let you in if you don't have the wristband.
Yeah, no, you have to be a member and you have to book, and yeah, it's a bit of a faff, but it's definitely worth it. And a real unusual tourist experience when in London.
Yeah, very unusual. Well, that's the thing with being a swimmer, right? You see things from a different perspective to most people.
Yeah, yeah. I was in Canada. I went to Canada last year, and swam in Lake Ontario, from Toronto, and swam in the sea at Vancouver. And yeah, it's just cool. It totally changes how that's the first thing I look up now if I'm going somewhere.
Is like where you can swim.
Yeah, it's like, and it's because people are so social, and it's such a community. Wherever you go, there's always a Vancouver Open Water Swimmers group or whatever that you can join, and then ask people for their advice. And I find that really good. People really helpful. And so, like, I met up with someone in Toronto. I said, has anyone got any swimming recommendations? And someone said, oh yeah, I'm swimming at so and so beach. I'll be there at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning if you want to come for a swim. And it just gives you that bit of confidence.
And what was the water like there?
It was really nice, actually. It was like 20 degrees. It was beautiful. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's like frozen solid within probably a month after that, but I was there in autumn, and, late summer, the water's still catching up, so the water was still nice.
Awesome. And is there anywhere else in the world that you would like to swim?
I'd really like to do the swim from Alcatraz to San Francisco, and it is apparently quite doable. I think it's 2.4 Ks, strong currents and everything, but it's obviously really popular. They have a very well-oiled machine of tourist boats and stuff, so that's on my list. But yeah, you can easily find me sitting up in bed browsing swim trips in Croatia or whatever. They're all probably the distances that they do are really long. Like,
Yeah,
they're sort of like, oh, this is a moderate trip. We swim 6 Ks a day. I'm like, oh my God, that's a long way.
that's a lot of swimming, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, most of the time I'm just bobbing around, I'm not necessarily swimming anywhere. So,
Well, Kate, I've really enjoyed talking to you this evening. Is there anything else you want to mention that I haven't already asked you about?
no, just I think I'm just grateful for like people like yourself doing the podcast, and all those people out there who are doing things for the swimming community. I think it's cool, and yeah, all those fellow swimmers out there keeping an eye on each other.
Yeah, we're really lucky with our swim community in Wellington, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how many swimmers come to this year's Matariki swims. I'm guessing
Yeah.
it might be more than last year. It seems to be growing
Yeah,
year on year.
let's see. Yeah, I was interested in your podcast chat with Graham, his having been at Freyberg for a while, assessing the number of swimmers and, because I've only got my own experience to judge by, which has been over the last few years, and I'm always amazed at how many people, like on a weekday at 7:30 at Freyberg, and you'll be like, Jesus, it's like 40 people here.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think we were joking when we were organising the swim that you said the first rule of swim club is that you talk about swim club.
Yeah.
And it is a bit like that. I find, like, I try not to over talk about it to people who've heard me, chat on
Yeah.
constantly, but I am pretty evangelical about it. When you find something that you love and feel so good, you just want to share it with everybody.
Yeah, and also other people find it so crazy that then they remember it about you, and so then they ask you about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
people say to me all the time, "Did you swim today?" And it's like, I've been swimming every day for the last 4 years, so the answer to
Yeah,
that
you
is
almost
always
need
yes.
you need
But
to get a t-shirt made that
yeah,
says yes, yes,
yes,
I
I did
swam
swim
today.
today.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Swim Chats. Please remember to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you enjoyed it, you can leave a 5-star rating and review, which helps other people find it too. Enjoy the water, and we'll see you next time.